Hello, this is our presentation on Mughal Pleasure Gardens done for our Land 240 Spring 2026 group project done by Waverly West, Jade Lizake, Owen Sayeski, Clay Tarver, and Braden Berger. So to start, here's our table of contents with our sections of our presentation. I'll be going over the introduction, then there is our analysis of historical garden, discussion of contemporary garden, and our conclusion. So to start with some background information about the Mughal Empire, it was a Muslim dynasty that ruled a large portion of India from the mid-1500s until the mid-1800s. The empire was established by a man named Babur and was ruled by 15 consecutive emperors until Britain colonized India. The dynasty is characterized by their consolidation of many different cultures and regions and influences and religions into a single unified empire with its own distinct culture. So, for its location, the Mughal Empire reached its height around 1707 under Emperor Aurangzeb. During its height, the Mughal Empire included present day India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and parts of present day Afghanistan. As you can see in that diagram, it was a large part of the Indian subcontinent. Over 75% of the people living in the Mughal Empire worked in agriculture in rural areas and did not live in cities, but there were a few major cities such as Agra and Delhi. The empire also had a thriving sea trade that due to its many seaports, and that allowed it to trade with a variety of trade partners, which led to it being able to be influenced by its many different trade partners into one culture. The Mughal Empire's culture was a combination of Arabic, Turkish, Persian, Islamic, and Hindu influences. The art and architecture that resulted from the fusion of those influences was grand, stately, and structured. As we were talking about landscape architecture for this class, Mughal landscape architecture commonly incorporates a usage of water into its gardens and buildings. So I'm going to finish with a timeline of the Mughal Empire just for some more background. In 1526, the Mughal dynasty began with Emperor Babur. In 1632, construction of the famous Taj Mahal began under Emperor Shah Jahan. In 1648, the capital was moved from Agra to Shah Jahanabad, which is Delhi. In 1707, as previously stated, the empire reached its height to a majority of the Indian subcontinent, and in 1857, the Mughal Empire ended with Britain unseating Bahadur Shah II, who was the last Mughal emperor.
My name is Braden Berger, and for the public Mughal Pleasure Garden, this is Shalimar Bagh. It was originally designed as a royal or private Mughal Pleasure Garden by an emperor in 1619 for his wife. It's enclosed and follows a formal symmetrical layout. It features different terraces reserved for the emperor and the court members, and had limited public access. The different levels reflect the Mughal emphasis on order, exclusivity, and the overall display of power, because obviously the higher levels mean a higher level of power. For the private Mughal pleasure gardens, they're mainly used for relaxation and retreat for emperors and the royal families. Here, they did entertainment and leisure, includes music, poetry, and celebrations. And then this picture right here, Aram Bagh or Ram Bagh, it's the oldest Mughal pleasure garden in India. Functions. They were primarily recreational, designed for, again, relaxation and used for social and cultural activities, including gatherings, conversations, and royal events. And also had aesthetic to it, with water, a lot of water features, careful selection of plants, flowers, and trees. And like we talked about in class, they were designed to represent a paradise-like setting. Scale for the large gardens, we have the Pinjore Gardens, multi-terraced Mughal gardens, long center access or water access, expansive layouts, a lot of fountains and pavilions, combines more monumental architecture with large-scale landscapes, just overall big gardens. And for the small garden, Zafar Mahal Garden. It was built during the late Mughal period when gardens became more intimate and just less grand compared to the earlier examples. And that one was designed as a private retreat space for the emperor. And here are the pictures right here to the left. Siting, relationship with the surroundings. They were often guided by the natural landscape, like the rivers and lakes and mountain views. Designed to show control over nature, and the gardens were positioned to highlight scenic views, and they created a connection between built space, like man-made things, and the natural landscape.
Hello, my name is Owen Sayeski. I'm a part of Group 21, and today I'll be talking about Mughal Pleasure Gardens. For my first slide, I'll be talking about spatial organization. So, key elements of spatial organization in Mughal Gardens are first, water. So, water directs where you move in the garden and what your eyes choose to look at first. But what water creates is space. And as we can see in the photo, that the garden is broken up by these water channels. And why these water channels are so important is if everything was kind of just mushed together, shoved together, then you couldn't really appreciate the beauty of each tree, of each shrub, of each flower. So the water and these channels actually allow there to be space and allow the viewer to appreciate each element as its own distinct thing. The next element is walls and various plants enclose the space to create a paradise within. With these Mughal pleasure gardens, they're supposed to mimic a paradise, and the outside world is not that. It's chaos, it's ugly, and by building these walls and having these plants essentially enclose the space, you create an introverted experience, but you're able to control the experience that you have within the garden. And another aspect of this control is geometry. Geometry is an important tool for the planners who constructed these gardens because, again, they're trying to replicate paradise or what they think it might be in the afterlife. And so they will make sure everything is perfect, everything is measured out exactly the way they want it. So it's not this like natural flowing garden, it's more manicured and human human intervention to control the space. The next slide I have here is aspect of design. So most of the grounds for these Mughal pleasure gardens are flat. They're separated by what is known as a karbah, and I'll talk about more of the symbolism of this later. But in the image on the left, you can see that there's four streams that lead into a box, and that's exactly what a karbah is. Um, and some gardens can have terracing and levels as seen as in some of the gardens in Kashmir, but for the most part, these Mughal pleasure gardens are very flat.
So the Pinuri Gardens were originally designed during the late 1600s. They were designed as a place for royalty to relax and to enjoy nature. And after the decline of the Mughal Empire, it was continued to be upkept by the British and then by the nation of India after many hundreds of years. It's still very well kept. A lot of Persian influence goes into the design of the garden, the Paradise Garden. It's a huge influence on it. Um, So if we look at the aspect of design, water, you can see through the image here in the Pinori Gardens that there is a main water channel that runs straight through the center of the garden. It's a big focal point for the garden, directs a lot of focus and sight. And the water flows down through different waterfalls, there's steps, very beautiful architecture, very linear. And the water also serves a practical purpose to help cool the space and make the garden feel more peaceful. And it just keeps on that emphasis of a paradise garden. Um, Now, vegetation, it's a very lush garden. There's a variety of trees, ferns, flowers placed in a very organized way. As you can see in the photo, they're in a straight line, well planted. It's not meant to be super organic looking like maybe Japanese gardens. You can see cypress trees, are a big part of the Pinora Gardens. They're used as a symbol of eternity in Mughal culture. Seasonal flowers are used to create better color, and it just goes back to that paradise garden type theme, just for the beauty of it. Um, Now, if we look at the axial layout of this garden, you can see that it's a very straight garden. It's created along a central line with everything arranged symmetrically along it. It's built on levels of terraces, so it goes up levels instead of going down like hills. It's very structured. There are plenty of walkways, water features, and different kinds of structures that will follow the main axis. It's meant to feel balanced and organized, and it's a reflection of the Mughal ideas of harmony and beauty.
The last side I'll be presenting on is symbolism. So a large or a huge importance um, in the Islamic faith is that they don't have icons or they don't celebrate idolatry. So a lot of the gardens, there will not be statues or murals of people that are important. They place a larger emphasis on the beauty of nature, and in these gardens you can see the well manicuredness and the architecture um, around it. And then a charbah, what I was saying earlier, represents the four rivers of paradise. So in almost every Mughal garden you see, there will be uh, a charbah. Geometry is the cosmic order, also known as axis mundi, and water represents purity, power, and control.
So now I'm going to be discussing the contemporary garden example and how it relates to the Mahal garden design. The example that we chose was the Aga Khan Garden located in Canada, which opened in 2018. It is a public garden designed for relaxation and cultural experience, and it is directly inspired by the traditional Islamic and Mahal garden design. So the garden focuses on creating a peaceful environment and encouraging reflection while also connecting to visitors and nature. So when looking at the spatial organization, the Aga Khan Garden uses a strong geometric and symmetrical layout with a clear central axis. Uh, and this is very similar to the Mahal Garden, which uses the Sharbagh layout to divide space into symmetrical sections and guide movement through the garden using the water channels. So in both cases, symmetry is used to control how people move the space and what they focus on. So when looking at the water, the Aga Khan Garden includes reflecting pools and fountains that create a calm and visual focused environment. Similarly to the Mahal Gardens, which use central water access and fountains, which not only adds beauty but symbolizes paradise. In both designs, water is a central feature that enhances the atmosphere and plays an important role in the overall experience of the garden. As for the function, the Aga Khan Garden is a public space designed for relaxation, social interactions, and cultural use. The Mahal Gardens, while more exclusive, were also used as spaces for leisure, retreats, and social gatherings. So in both cases, the gardens serve a similar purpose as spaces for relaxation, enjoyment, and an escape from everyday life.
Now, if we were to look at the conclusion, so you can see that the example of Penuri Gardens shows how many of the main features of Mughal pleasure gardens were still being used after the end of the Mughal Empire. The fountains and water channels are similar to other Mughal gardens to be a main focal point visually and symbolically. They're a good reflection of the Mughal idea of creating a peaceful, balanced pleasure garden that feels like paradise.